Hello, everyone. So we are live again on Sunday series Author Live Chat with fans, and today, August 22nd, 8 p.m. CST, we have yet another nonfiction author and also a life coach joining us today for our show. And this is going to be something very exciting because I've not done a live show on touching on relationships before. So I think this is going to be really interesting and exciting. So let me just briefly introduce the author to you. So we're going to welcome author Maureen Scanlon, who is the founder and the CEO of Maureen Scanlon Life Coaching. Maureen's certifications include life coaching, NLP, DBT, REBT, ACT, and PET psychology. So she has helped many people from young professionals to those seeking a positive change, and she has held group coaching and retreat for mindful change and created a 5-step program for fostering meaningful relationships. Maureen and her husband Denise live in Mesa, Arizona with Jade, a 15-pound Chihuahua, and Broody, an Australian Shepherd mix. They have 4 children and 3 grandchildren. Maureen is also the author of My Dog is More Enlightened Than I Am, and also My Dog is My Relationship Coach. So you can actually check her out on www.lifecoachmaureen.com. And so without further ado, let's welcome author Maureen to the show. I'm so excited to have her over here. Hello, Maureen. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I am fabulous tonight, and I'm just so grateful to be on your show and to meet you. And I just love how everything works out. Synchronicities, we're supposed to be here, and everybody that's watching is supposed to be here. So I'm
Yes.
excited to talk about relationships and furry babies, my two favorite things in the world.
Awesome. Right. Maureen, I actually briefly introduced you to the audience, I mean, those who are watching, but I think it would be good to hear a little bit from you about yourself.
Yes, thank you. As you said, I am a certified life coach. I do also business coaching. I do spiritual coaching. I'm actually a medium. So I've explored that gift. And it's just been such an amazing journey. It was something that I started, I'm in my 4th year of business, and then written both of the books, and they've won awards, which was completely unexpected and unbelievable. So yeah, it's been fun, and anytime I can share the message and help others live their greatest life, I'm in for it.
Right. So, Maureen, let us know a little bit about your background and where you came from, your education background, or probably your experience prior to all this, like, before you started life coaching, and what made you start life coaching.
Absolutely. It's amazing how your life takes certain paths, and it's based on the choices and the decisions that you make. So
Yeah.
I got married at a very young age. I've always felt the need to help others. I've always had that sort of inner feeling of when something wasn't right, it just didn't sit right. And I both professionally and personally had a lot of struggles. I started out in nursing, and then I was in the medical field in the business side of it, and had a corporate job for years. And my personal relationships were terrible because I just hadn't loved myself enough yet or healed yet to understand what my worth was, or, excuse me, or what I deserved. And it was only when I did that healing that I met my husband, and we went on our honeymoon to Belize. And people just suddenly were coming up to me and asking me questions and listening to my stories. We came home, and I started a blog called Just Ask Mo. And from there, someone had said, "Hey, you'd make a great life coach." And this was when it was very new. I had no idea what this was. And I said, "Well, what is a life coach?" I saw what it was, and I went, "Oh, yeah, I kind of been doing that my entire life." So it evolved from there. And I thought, well, I guess I should get paid for my advice. So
Uh-huh.
it just grew from there. And, all of the different clients, all the different areas of life, along with my own spiritual journey, and then writing the books, it just blew up. And that's where we are today. And it just keeps growing. And I set my intentions, and I'm ready for it to just completely keep blowing up.
Awesome. I mean, like, I think it's pretty interesting to hear. I think most of the life coaches out there have a story of how they actually step into the field, the life coaching field. It's not like they decided to be a life coach from the beginning, but I think it's just because of a series of events that happened, which encouraged them to venture into life coaching. And I think that's really important because it also tells us where our strength lies and how to leverage the strength to become a life coach for others. I think without that, you will not be a good life coach because you will not know how the others are struggling, right? So I think it's always an interesting journey, or to listen to authors explaining a little bit and sharing their stories about how they struggled and how that struggle eventually, led to who they are right now and the path they have discovered. And it's really, really amazing to listen to all the stories. And that's what we are here for. And so, since you actually said about, I think this is where we are coming to the, to the topic of the show, which is, I know my dog is my relationship coach. And you mentioned that, in the past you've been in not so successful relationships, and because you've not loved yourself enough. And I was really intrigued by that aspect, because I think a lot of people out there really need to hear this. I mean, really need help in order to understand themselves and love themselves more, in order to make better decisions for themselves. So tell us a little bit about how your relationships were in the past and how you actually made that transition to finally heal yourself and, move forward.
Yes. And I agree with you. I think the best life coaches have the most life experience. You're
Mm-hmm.
coaching on life, and who can coach better than someone who's had all of those experiences, good and bad, especially bad,
Uh-huh.
I think. So if you can take those experiences, bring it forward and help others, my goodness, then I realized that was what my purpose was. And, I always think I want to be the voice my younger self needed, because I didn't know all of this stuff and I didn't believe in myself. So I got married at 18 years old. I got pregnant with my first daughter. And, sometimes we get into relationships and we see those red flags and we just no, I should not be doing this. But
Uh-huh.
I came from a home where, it was really more I wanted to leave the home than it was I want to go be with this person. So it was sort of this catch 22, which one do I want more? And so I ended up getting married very young at 18. And we ended up he joined the military. We were stationed in Germany, and he had an alcohol problem, and he was physically abusive. And I continued to try to fix him. Who's my fix?
Ah.
Where's, where's my fixers? I see you. I see you. And the thing is, when you're an empathic person, your goal in life is to fix people. You think my love will make everything better. Yeah, no, love doesn't fix everything. I now believe love is secondary, and you really need to have your eyes open, and the respect and the trust need to come first. But when you're 18, what do you know? So we were married for 11 years total. He did end up being unfaithful. That was the final straw for me. There was a moment I remember and I still look back and you think, who was that girl? Because who I am now, wow, there's no way. And this is where I go out and I help other young girls in these domestic violence relationships. But I remember there was a moment he came home, he'd been drinking, and we got into an argument. I was supposed to go to work. And I don't know what happened. You never argue with someone who's been drinking, obviously. That's, a lesson learned. And he had me on the ground and he was choking me. And I remember that saying, when everything starts going black. And I remember just it closing in on me. And my only thought was that my two girls, they were 2 and 4 at the time, were in the other room. And the only thing that kept me going was, they're not going to have a mom. You have to fight because I don't want them to not have a mom. And I found this superhuman strength to get him off of me. And that first breath that I took, I remember it hurt my lungs. And I thought, you were really close to death there. And, and again, when you're in those abusive relationships, they gaslight you. Well, if you wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have done that. If you wouldn't have said that, I wouldn't have acted that way. And then there's always that sorry stage. I'll never do it again. And it's just repetitive. When you love yourself, you can see through that. And I hadn't learned how to love myself yet.
Yeah. So I actually think that, we really learn lessons the hard way because, we tend to repeat a lot of lessons. You were saying that, you were 18 and obviously you were blinded by many aspects, especially how you thought that love would fix someone. But someone could be 30, 32 just like me, or 40 or 50, and still have that problem, thinking that the more they give would, the more the healing the other person would receive, or the more the love the other person would receive. And at the end of the day, probably they can fix the relationship. But I think that's not how it works. I know that empathetic, when we are empathetic, that is the problem. I think that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing for us, because empathy is good because we are able to see the pain of others. We understand that the other person is in pain and they need help, and they are actually not who they portray themselves to be. That it's just not who they are. I mean, even those who are under the influence of alcohol, all that stuff, they do not choose to become that way. It's all because of the pain and all the underlying issues that they have built up over the years that have prompted them to go towards that direction. And I think being an empathetic, we are able to see that factor, for that fact. And that's the reason why I think we keep trying to fix things, and we believe that we can fix things, when in actual reality that's not going to help. That's not going to help things get better, or maybe even worse. I think it will put our lives at stake, right? So what happened after that? I mean, you were in a bad relationship and you decided that enough is enough. And how did you actually, I understand that the healing process is definitely not a linear one. It's a roller coaster ride. So moving forward, what actually happened and how you healed yourself completely?
Well, I really love that you said it's not just being young that we do this. We repeat these cycles. We ask for these lessons over and over until we finally get them. And I always say experiences that you have in your life are either you're learning them or you're teaching them. And sometimes we're slow learners like myself, and I asked over and over for the same lesson. So just like you said, I continued attracting, as I always say, the same man with a different face through my 20s and 30s, my 30s, divorced at 29 years old. And then into my 30s, I continued to do the same thing, the insanity cycle, do the same thing and hope for different results. And I was attracting the same people. And that was when the healing process started. And I tell everyone, pardon my French, when they come to life coaching, you have to be so tired of your shit. You have to be so tired of it that you're ready. That's when you're ready. Is I can't do this anymore. I don't want to continue this. So I did sort of a 2-year soul journey. I'd never been alone from 18 years old until 45. I had never not been in a relationship. There may have been, little tiny periods, but never for a long amount of time. So for 2 years, I said, you know what? You're not going to be in a relationship. You're going to work on you. You're going to learn how to be alone, and you're going to learn how to like yourself. Because I didn't like myself. I didn't like being alone with myself. So I always needed a man. I always wanted someone in my life because I didn't like being with myself. I engulfed myself in things that were all about me. And I think we all, and especially women, have been taught not to be selfish. We've been taught to nurture everybody. We've been taught to take care of everyone. And in doing so, a lot of times we've just put ourselves to the back seat and said, we need to put everybody else first. And I think I carried that over into relationships. So for those 2 years, I just went out and I did hiking and I did a lot of meditations and I did things I'd never done before. I went to meetup groups or, building that confidence, I think was really the key for me. And what I do with my life coaching and what I did in my own life was I created this avatar of the man that I deserve. And I set the bar very, very high. So when I went back out into the dating arena, I would recognize if they were below my bar. And that was the coolest part because I was able to have patience where I never had patience meeting people before. My husband and I met online and he tried to contact me. We would have conversations and it took 4 months before I would go on my first date with him. And it was a very fun, random thing. He kept asking and I'd say, no, I'm just looking for friends. I'm not ready for a relationship. And he'd say, maybe 2 weeks or a month later, he'd say, hey, I'd love to take you out. Are you ready? And I'd go, yeah, no, maybe not. Let's just keep talking. Finally, it was a Wednesday and I got a text on my phone and it said, hey, are you ready for that dinner date? And I thought, this guy's so nice. He's not pushy. He's very kind. And I went out with him on that Wednesday night. And come to find out, we both have never figured out where that text came from because he did not send that text. So I think there was definitely some divine intervention that we were supposed to be together. So it was in setting my bar when I went out on that date. I was really able to see things as they were. And I think we tend to go out on dates and we see the potential of what someone could be. And we miss those red flags or we miss those cues, the things that they say or things that just they're not compatible with us. They don't mesh with our values. And so I was finally able to see what was right in front of my face. And I remember sitting across from him and we were about 30 minutes into the date and I was just in my mind going, man, I didn't want to like you, but I really like you. So it just kind of grew from there. But he's taught me a lot. And what happened was I recognized I finally met another giver. And I think what happens when you are an empath, you attract the takers because they tend to hone in on noticing that you give everything. And people who are takers, who tend to have those personality disorders or even just that personality type that it's all about them. They're very selfish and self-centered. They love to be with people who are empaths because they get their needs met, but they don't meet the needs of others. And it's up to us to walk away. It's up to us to keep our eyes open. It's up to us to say, I deserve more. It's up to us to say, I don't want to be treated that way. So my journey brought me to him, and it's really been quite an experience being in a healthy marriage versus the past that I didn't know what healthy was until this marriage. And, we met when I was 46 years old. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's not a spring chicken.
Mm-hmm.
So it was good though. It was good because I had enough tools in my arsenal to know what I didn't want. And that way
Mm-hmm.
I was able to see what I did want.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think I absolutely love the fact that you said we need to learn how to live alone or just go through the uncomfortable phase alone. Just be alone and just enjoy the company of being alone, and then so that we understand where we're coming from. But I think um, someone can be alone for many years but still do not know how to love themselves or do not know how to love their own company, and they would still be wanting to please others, or thinking that they have to lower their standards because of being single for a long time. They tend to think that what's wrong with me, should I just not be too choosy and just go for what comes my way, and try to see if this is gonna work, put in more efforts. It's called efforting. And yeah, let's just see what happens if I do more of this efforting, and if things turn better. But I think end of the day, it's that's also not gonna happen. But I really think that you brought up a very good point over there, because it's actually not so much about being in the company of others or not. I think despite being in the company of others, one should really learn how to separate themselves from the others, like the company of others. Be trying to define themselves as a separate entity. I think it also works in relationships. When somebody is in a relationship, to not define themselves based on the presence of somebody else. Like I think you have to take some time out to really do things that you enjoy and really separate your identity, so that it's not really something intertwined or glued together. What do you have to say about that, Maureen?
Oh, I agree with you 100%. And you said that the best thing that you said right there is finding your identity in someone else. So that tells you haven't done the inner work. And that really is where you have to find ways to do that inner work. And with the life coaching, I do this exercise that it's always sort of this breakthrough session for everyone. And we do false beliefs. And we go through a series of questions and we find out, why do you do what you do? Why do you believe this? What's your go-to behavior? What's your go-to thought? In doing my own soul journey, and even in doing that exercise myself, I realized as a child, I was raised to be a codependent. So I realized
Mm,
I always made sure my mother was good. My mother was very hot tempered. My mother was very moody. My mother was not the most nurturing woman. And
uh-huh.
so it was like walking on eggshells every day growing up. And so what did I do? I carried that out into my adult life. I carried that into
Mm,
every relationship where I molded myself to what everybody else wanted. And the most pertinent thing is, the more I thought the more that I did, the more I would be loved. And that
mm-hmm,
made
mm-hmm,
me understand that I'd only known conditional love, because I
mm-hmm,
felt that I had to earn love. And when
mm-hmm,
I finally decided to unconditionally love myself just for being who I am, then I was able to go out into the world and look for unconditional partners who are going to accept me for who I am without me having to work so hard to earn that love.
mm,
So
mm,
that's so pertinent. Like you said, in my life coaching, I tell everyone there's a balance in life. You have to have couple time, alone time, and family time. And you cannot sacrifice one of those and be in balance and be whole. You have
mm-hmm,
to have each piece of those, because each piece of those is your identity and makes you who you are. But that alone time is the confidence builder, I think. I
mm-hmm,
recall when I got divorced, and my ex-husband took my children for his visitation. He took them every other weekend. And I remember the first weekend he took them after we were getting separated or divorced. And I'm in the house and I literally asked myself, who are you? If you are not
uh-huh,
wife and you are not a mother. Do you even know who you are? And that was like, oh my gosh, it was probably one of those really dark moments where you're like, I don't know who I am. All I knew was being a wife and a mom. And I remember this so clearly. I took myself to a coffee shop and I sat there with a book and a coffee, and I was so uncomfortable. I had no idea how to sit by myself and do something. I'd never been to a movie by myself, I'd never been to a restaurant by myself. It was really that aha moment of, you got to get out of this. You really need to build some confidence. And it still took many, many, many years, but you're so right. That identity crisis that we have is so important, that we don't seek to be fulfilled by another person.
Yes. I really think that a lot of women who especially get into relationships early in their lives tend to just forego their identity, thinking that all they should do in life is just nurture somebody else and just take care of other people, and that's love. And if everybody else is happy, then I'm happy, but that's not happy, that's just not happiness. I think it will come to a point where mothers especially would realize that that's just not life. And when they realize that, I think it would be like a little bit too late, and they, or either that, or they will be a bit lost, not knowing how to start the whole thing again, like just finding the purpose in life. It's a completely sad thing to happen to a human being, not just a woman, but I think to anybody else who have lost the purpose in life, or their identity, or their sense of self in life. So, what do you have to say to people like this who are actually stuck in a relationship, not knowing their identity, or they wish they have started all this early? But we all know that change can happen any day, like today, tomorrow. So it's just the matter of picking the right habits up. So, what do you have to say to women who are struggling with this issue? I think we know that a lot of women are actually going through the same process, like it's just in that situation. So, what do you have to say to them?
I come across this often. I coach a lot of people that are going into that dating process, or are in these relationships that are not fulfilling. And they're one of the most important things I always say is, my desire to be in a healthy relationship is greater than my fear of being alone. So that's one of the things
Uh-huh.
I always tell all of my clients who are in relationships that are not fulfilling. It's, don't fear being alone. It's, make sure that you're getting what you want. One of the best things to do is to do these pros and cons. When you're in a relationship, write down, how does that person make you feel? How are you better when you're with them? Do you feel you have freedom in the relationship? You'll know when you make that list, where that relationship stands. And if you are lacking in that pro list, then it's time for you to get out of it and just say, I need to love myself more than I need to make sure somebody else is okay or be in that relationship. Finding purpose is, when you're with someone or when you're alone, it doesn't matter. We don't have to have a relationship to fulfill us. So finding that purpose is, it's so important that we're fulfilling our passions, and that we know it by the way that we feel. So you know that your dreams are being fulfilled. If you don't even know what your passion is, you'll know it by just thinking about things in life that make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
Think about dogs, and they make me happy. Or there's people who are all about truth and justice. Maybe you should be a lawyer, maybe you should pursue a job in law enforcement, maybe you like medical field. You'll find your purpose if you're looking for it. You just have to do that inner work. And being in those relationships that stifle us will only delay the inevitable, because it won't get better. It will only get worse. And you will get more and more unhappy until there's a breaking point, and then there's no choice. And you have to leave. I tell everyone, you'll know when you know. And when you're with the right person, you'll know by the flow, because it's just easy. My relationships previous to my husband were hard. It was so
Mm-hmm.
work. So if you see you're giving a lot of effort and it's exhausting and it's not bringing you more joy than pain, you know you're not in the right path with that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Right. And another interesting question is that um, a lot of people who are looking for a relationship, they actually they are very anxious, and they it all boils down to this question of, how long am I supposed to wait, or is this even my path, like um uh let's just say couples who are expecting, who want to have kids, right? But they are struggling for some reasons. I think these two scenarios are also similar, whereby you just do not know, like, how long more you're supposed to wait, or are you supposed to like go for some other options in life. I think that's the most, that's the, like, probably trickiest part of all. It's like, are you supposed to be just staying very hopeful in what you want, or are you supposed to just see if some other options come your way, and you are interested in different parts of life. So I do believe that this is a kind of a dilemma that a lot of people actually go through, especially when they know that they do not have that answer right in front of their eyes. So that's, I think that is the most difficult part of all, because if, let's say, you were to lose your legs one day, you just know that it's gone, and you have to deal with it, and it's just, you have to find ways to handle that. But when it comes to this scenario of waiting, or of being hopeful, and especially having trust in the divine timing, what do you have to say about our wants and needs, and versus what's supposed to happen in our life, and the waiting and all that stuff in between?
Such a great question. I love that. I really love that, because that was the struggle for me. That was the struggle that we all have, especially after a breakup. You're like, I'm never going to meet anyone ever again, and it's going to be forever, and I'm going to die alone. And what it is you're a creator of your own reality. So think about, the better you are, the more you practice positivity and mindfulness. And the mindfulness part is so important in attracting, right? So if I am so grateful for what I have every day, then I'm not stressed out. So a couple who's trying to conceive, like you said, or someone who's lonely and is wanting to attract a mate, your job is, where attention goes, energy flows. So your job is to focus on what's good in your life, right? If you have a wonderful marriage and you don't have children yet, that's okay. You focus on what a great marriage you have, and you do those affirmations, and you speak it as if it's already happened. And I find that works for me. I set intentions every morning, and I tell my clients, set your intentions every morning. Tell your day how it's going to go. Don't wait for everything to pile on, and you're reacting to every, thing that's going on. It's better to say, this is how my day is going to go. So if you want to attract a person that is your true twin flame soulmate, you say, every day I'm getting closer to my soulmate, and they're getting better as well as I am. And we're going to meet when we're at our healthiest point. And so if you haven't met him yet, then you go, I still have some work to do, and I still love myself. And you do those affirmations, and you say, why do I love myself? I remember after I did the healing, and I would go out on dates, and I really had this mindset of, I am the best thing since sliced bread. And it's a privilege for you to be sitting across from me. Now that was a far stretch from the girl that I was at 18 years old, right? I finally had that mindset that I deserved everything that I put out there in the universe. I deserve that unconditional love that I give. And by going out with that attitude, I met the most amazing man in the entire, universe in this life because I believed I deserved it. So the more you believe you deserve something, the more you will attract it. And it's just affirming that every single day. I tell my clients every day, I want you to add an affirmation about yourself. I want you to say, today, look in the bathroom mirror when you're getting ready and you say, I'm really strong and I've overcome a lot. Tomorrow, when you look in the mirror, you go, I really love my eyes and I have a kind heart. So you just kind of build that up. You've got to learn how to find validation within, because you will never be satisfied when you're trying so hard to find validation from outside of you, because people will disappoint you every time, right? I love it when you laugh like that, because I know it's resonating with you. I know I feel you, and you get that, right?
Yes, especially the validation part, I think. I think we want to be seen, we want to be heard so badly that we go back to the people who reject us, or probably who who are not able to just see what we have to give, and we are like, why the heck it's so difficult, and why the heck it's like, this person is not able to see what I'm trying to do over here, like, it is, I mean, being an empath, right, like you said, that sometimes we tend to see the pain of others, or we just tend to see what other people are capable of, and what they actually, the ability of others to receive love, although they are not open to receiving love. And that's where we actually try to push further and try to see, if they can actually see what we are trying to give them, and trying to get validation. Hey, I see what you're doing. Yeah, I know you're putting in a lot of effort, and I appreciate that, and all that stuff coming from that person. And we feel like, oh wow, we've done something absolutely amazing. It deserves a medal. But it doesn't last long. I mean, even if that happens, I think it's just for a fleeting moment that, the appreciation or the validation will be provided to you. But it's just a matter of time. They would revert back to revert to the default setting, a default frame of mind, of their frame of mind. And then you will go again and again, with all that efforting, with all that, seeking validation, because I think they have not come to a point where, they've done their inner work. And I think because of that reason, you're not able to approach someone and make them see something that they do not want to see, or they're just not ready to see. So
Right.
that's, I think, a really, really important point you made over there. It's like seeking validation. And that has got a lot to do with how we are brought up when we were when we were a kid, and the kind of attachment style that we have with our parents, and that kind of
Yes. Yes. She said attachment style. That is so true, because I'm actually right in the middle of a course that is about attachment styles with love addicts and love avoidance. And it's exactly that, like we talk about with the empaths and the non-empath, and we can even go with the narcissistic personality disorders, or even just narcissistic people. You're absolutely right. And that's where I realized I was codependent, and I brought that out into the world. I love that. It's those attachment styles come from our childhood. And these relationships, it relates, like you said, it could be anyone. It could be friendships. It could be, work, co-workers. It could be parents. It could be siblings. When we say my dog is my relationship coach, it relates to our entire lives, because life is relationships. And I love that you said that. One thing that I have learned, especially with my parents, adore them, but I've learned a lot about them, and I've learned not to need their validation. I've learned to really be proud of what I do and who I am. And I heard this saying that I say to everybody, don't try to mend bonds you didn't break. So if you had no part in hurting them, but someone hurt you, you don't try to mend that. You don't mend a fence that you didn't break. And the other thing that I've adopted in my mantras is I don't go where I'm not celebrated. And I've learned,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's friendships or anyone that you encounter in life, if you're not celebrated by them and you're around them and you know those people, you know you have to prepare yourself when you're going to go to lunch with a certain friend, or you're going to talk to a certain coworker and they're vampires, they're energy suckers, and you
Mm-hmm.
just know, well, why do we keep putting ourselves in the vicinity of that? So
Mm-hmm.
I've learned how to just stop doing that. And when it comes to relationships and in dating, let's talk dating. When you're in that vicinity and you go on that first date, so many people go on a first date and they see things they don't like and they'll go, well, I think I'll give him a second chance. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to give
Mm-hmm.
chance? I always say, isn't your time valuable? Well, yeah. And I said, if you had to pay money to be with that person, would you spend the cash? And they'd say, well, I don't think I would. Then why are you giving your energy and your time and your mind? So it's funny that we'll give people chance after chance after chance. And in turn, we're robbing ourselves of taking
Mm-hmm.
that energy and putting it into something way more positive. And
Mm-hmm.
you're so right about those attachment styles. And you figure out right away a love addict attracts a love avoidant, and a love avoidant plays sort of that game of I want to keep you hanging on. Those who go back, when you were saying you go back to these people because you think you can still make a change, then what you're saying is I still don't believe enough in myself and love myself enough to believe I deserve better than you. So I'm going to repeat this process until I finally get it. Because they are, I love what you said about they're not going to recognize it. And there's a lot of people out there that say things and don't back it up. My husband said to me, I believe it was on our first or second date, he said, don't listen to my words, watch my actions. That was huge for me because every man I'd been with was just lip service, and they
Yeah,
lied.
yeah.
They were liars. They broke promises. They said they would do things. They said they would change. So for him to walk into my world and say, watch what I do, that held a lot of water for me. And he did. And he's been consistent and he's proved it. You can't have a relationship where one person is self aware and one person is not. It's impossible to meet on common ground and be on the same vibration and make it work. Your team, your partners, you have to connect on a mind, soul, and body level. How can you do that when you're so far off? Right?
Mm-hmm, exactly. And I have to also add on over here is that I think normally people actually torn between trying harder and giving up. Like it's always a dance between these two, and trying to find that balance, and that's where a lot of people actually get lost, and not knowing if you should try a little bit more to see if you can save it, or you just back out, right? So um I do think that for at least for the satisfaction of probably just to try things out, I think it is okay to see, but not to go further, especially when you've already known that it's not going to work, and you've already know you've gotten the kind of evidence that you are looking for, and I think that's about it. So but I think on the other hand, there are a lot of people who especially I wanted to actually come to this point, and I was wanting to ask you this question as well. Those who are actually affected by previous relationships, who have not done the inner work, right? I think they would be so cautious to the point that they would be triggered by just a little bit of things that don't seem to be right in the beginning. They will get triggered and they will just call the whole thing off, right? So What do you have to say about that? Now, I think those people who have not done this inner work will impact or will affect the other people as well, especially those who are ready, and they are so happy to just go, hey, hi, hello. And when you meet or bump into this kind of people who are not who have been bringing a lot of baggages from the past, especially, and being vulnerable, and especially when you're vulnerable, when one person is being extremely vulnerable or just vulnerable, wanting to open up, and the other person is just not ready, that you're shutting down, I think the level of intimacy is not going to be there. And vulnerability is also another aspect whereby, when you're being vulnerable, you are setting yourself also for a trap, to be deceived, to be manipulated, to attract people who are not so sincere about things, trying to just pretend that they are as vulnerable as you, and just trying to play along, and because of that, I think a lot of people, they just try to hold themselves back a little bit to see how things go. It's like, are you going to move first? I will move one step. Well, are you if you move one step further, I will also do that. So who's going to make that first step? So I think men or women, I think we face this thing. So what do you have to say about that?
I love that. And that is that's, isn't that the struggle? I mean, that is the struggle. The struggle is we've all had failed relationships. We've all had struggles with relationships. And now the question is, do I trust myself? Do I trust myself? And I remember, all those 2 years of that soul healing that I had to do so I wouldn't go out and date again was,
Mm-hmm.
I need to heal to a place where I can trust myself and trust my judgment. And so what you're saying is all fear-based. It's all fear-based because I don't trust myself. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to date. And now I'm unsure if they're going to be vulnerable, if I should start first, or if I trust them. So it all comes back to, how much faith do you have in yourself? How much belief do you have in yourself that you know what you want, that you will pay attention to the signs, that you will discontinue it immediately when something does not resonate well with you, that it doesn't feel like a flow and feel authentic. Again, you'll know by the flow when you meet someone, it'll just feel right. It'll just feel like you understand one another on a completely different level. And the trust part of that has to come from you first, trusting yourself and your judgment. What I really like too is what you said about carrying that baggage into the next relationship. And this was something, especially as a domestic violence survivor, if my husband would raise his voice, I had, the fight or flight mentality. Well, I was a flight mentality because of that past behavior. And I didn't want to escalate it to an argument, which in my mind in the past had escalated to physical harm. So you can see how easy I could bring that forth and be like, oh, don't raise your voice and I don't want to argue. So if I continued to bring that forth into this relationship, how would him and I ever resolve conflict? It was a choice. It was a choice to say, this is a new person. I trust myself in this relationship. I trust I've made a good choice. And I trust that this person is not going to harm me, mistreat me, disrespect me. And he is not the people in the past. So it really comes down to, do you trust yourself? When you talk about the vulnerability part of it, when you know that that person in front of you is the right one, or is a really just someone you like being with. And we need to start with friendship. I think we go into dating going, oh, I see my husband 10 years down the road. No, we need to just go out into the dating world and just say, I want to start a friendship. If a friendship works, you're building something and you're building a connection. And what do we do in friendship? We're vulnerable. We share our feelings with our girlfriends. We need to have a partner who is the opposite sex or the same sex partner or same sex that you're dating, that you have that vulnerability freedom with. You have a safe space. if you don't feel you have that safe space and you can't be vulnerable, or they're not being vulnerable with you, then you say, moving on, I'm going to the next one until I find that person that I feel completely ready and open and trusting, and we both share without, without a tug of war, trying to get someone to share. Or it's really about how much healing work you do and how much release work you do to build that confidence in yourself to go out there and say, I know I'm going to make good choices. I know I'm going to see everything for what it is and not for the potential I want it to be. I'm going to make good choices. And so everything always comes down to that choice of letting it go or continuing.
Yeah, I I absolutely love what you say about being vulnerable, especially I think if I think it's all about readiness level. It's always about it's that there's just nothing about being right or wrong. Um, uh, the other person, I mean, when you are not comfortable in the presence of someone and the other person likes you more than you like them, and they want to be more vulnerable, they want to just make more initiatives, and that it's you're not very sure, you're not as sure as they are, and you have to put a stop over there and saying that I think that I'm not as much as I am into you as you are into me. And I think it's more like whether we are on the same page or not, whether we that's how it progresses or regresses, or it just disappears. So I think that dynamic is really very beautiful, because it does not happen without a reason, right? I mean, like, it does not happen with just about anybody that you meet. It's either you're a little bit more progressive, you're a little bit more enthusiastic about the whole thing, or the other person is a little bit more or the both of you are just not really into it, and it just disappears, right? So energy.
Exactly. And I think that's where we don't go enough with our gut. We go with our head so much in life, and we're not
Uh-huh.
following that instinct. I wrote this scenario in the book, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just just a little thing that I came up with that I thought, okay, this is a really good analogy for people. So pretend you walk into a room and there's 100 people, and everybody has a color. So your color is green, and someone else's color is blue, and there's reds and there's yellows. And you walk into this room and you see the green people, right? You see
Mm-hmm.
the greens, and what do? You are drawn to the green people because there's a commonality with you. You're like, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
green, they're a green. I'm drawn to these green vibrations, say, like me. Well, we want that in life when we're dating. So wouldn't that be easy if I said, must be that. Why don't you just go to this person? He's exactly like you. It's going to work out perfect. That's what we want. But
Uh-huh.
really, what we don't believe is that we have it already inside of us. So
Mm-hmm.
you have that instinct, you have that intuition when you meet someone. And like you said, we're not really on the same page. Don't waste any more time. If there's anything I would go back in time to my younger self and say is, don't waste so much time on those that are not at your match, that are not at your vibration, that are not, you feel it. You felt it
Mm-hmm.
instinctually from the beginning, Maureen. Why did you waste 6 years? Why did you waste 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is the best takeaway right there. I love that you said that, because it's, you know it, but you doubt yourself and you question, do I need to work hard at this? I think we were
Uh-huh.
raised in the world, we've always been raised to hustle and make it work and force it and
Mm-hmm.
try. You're in a relationship and it's still not working. Keep trying and the reward will be so huge if you just keep trying. No, life should
Mm-hmm.
be more at ease. The more you do things with ease, the easier things will come to you, because you're
Mm-hmm.
removing any resistance of that law of attraction or those things that you want for yourself. You'll bring them when you're
Mm-hmm.
easier about it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I just love that, love the fact that you said how we need to understand that, the energy, if what we want in somebody is not what we're getting, if we are not feeling it enough, then I think that's about it, and we just need to walk away and not try to work things, work things out, because it's not going to work that way. I mean, like, it's not like you keep banging the door that has clearly shut the door, and you keep banging the door, it's not gonna, like, open. So I think you made a fantastic point over there. And we are looking at your life coaching page over here, and this is where audience can actually learn a little bit more about you and book a session with you. You are doing life coaching, relationship coaching, couples coaching, and also spiritual coaching. And I believe your books, um, your books are also, yeah. And coming to your book, my dog is my relationship coach, right? So I think, why do you think that, the furry animals are a fantastic companion? And what do you have learned in life about that?
It is amazing what they teach us if we're willing to look.
Uh-huh.
And it's been a journey of just watching them. And the idea just came from watching them one day when I was very stressed out. And it just, that light bulb went on. And I thought, wow, why don't we live a little more easier like them? Why don't
Mhm.
I just kind of enjoy life? So,
Mhm.
really the main things that they've taught me is, the nurturing, that they don't hold grudges, that they
Mhm.
live in the moment. They love
Mhm.
any moment they will do something that is self care. You ever notice
Mhm.
that? We
Mhm.
humans lack a lot of self care, but dogs do not lack in self care.
Mhm.
And they'll take a nap. They'll chase their tail. They'll run around the yard.
Uh-huh.
And if they have an itch, they're scratching it. So they're very self-aware of how do they feel. If they don't like someone, they let us know. You ever notice
Mm.
there's a lot of people that'll put on a dating profile, if my dog doesn't like you, I won't either. I actually
Mhm.
put that on my profile when I was dating.
Uh-huh.
Dogs are instinctual. They know. Kids and dogs, I think, have this innate ability to feel energy and say, this is
Uh-huh.
good energy, this is bad energy. And it's just, they give so much and they take so little.
Mm.
And they greet us and they treat us so kind and loving. It's amazing what we could do by just watching and
Uh-huh.
taking from them and saying, wow, I want to be that kind and that accepting to everybody the way that my dog is. I want to love myself that much. I want to be kind to my sibling or be energetic when I feel like it. It's just so
Mhm.
much that I've got from the dogs that really taught me. They taught me about, gosh, communication. And there's so many stories throughout the book. I tell all kinds of stories about Jade and Brody. And then also I had my grand doggy Callie, who's on the front cover, the border collie.
Mhm.
She was living with me with my grandchildren and my daughter at the time that I was writing this book. And Callie was just a character. She is, we call her Derpy because she
Mhm.
just, nothing bothers her. She just does silly things. She's goofy. She'll jump and fall down. She'll lay on the couch while she's sleeping and literally slide off of it. And she really taught me that life is not that serious. Just have fun. Just go with it. It doesn't matter. Have a good time. And so the dogs
Mhm.
they teach us a lot. And throughout the book, you'll see all the little stories of my silly babies. And I'm sure anyone who owns pets or has been around dogs knows that they're pretty darn enlightened and can
Mhm.
teach us a lot.
I think I love how you actually emphasized on being present and just staying in the moment, and how dogs actually do that. Just do that. They only do that. Like, they just enjoy the present moment, and they are very enlightened. They also know how to identify energy, that's coming from a new person, whether they like it or they don't like it. That's a good point because, I think unlike these animals, we tend to, I think we human, I think we have the ability to understand, whether we feel good or bad about the presence of someone. But it's just that we go back, like, hey, am I, like, a little bit, like, am I doing this overthinking, or am I, is it wrong for me to think that this person is sending off this negative energy, and am I supposed to, give them the benefits of doubts and things like that, right? So I think that's when we get trapped, and we, like, hey, let's just see, if this person is going to be, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they're nice, maybe this, maybe that, and all that stuff.
You think about how short life is, and you think, okay, if we're fortunate to live 100 years, think about all of the experiences and how they're just fleeting moments. You can't remember, 2 years ago, the exact date on August, 29th,
Yes.
you
Uh-huh.
know, and yet when we're in the moment, we overthink so dang much. It's crazy. And like you said, do I have to give them the benefit of the doubt? We don't owe anything to others except for kindness. You can have compassion and kindness to others, but you don't owe them your time. You don't owe them your energy. If it doesn't feel good for you, you have every right. It's your birthright to say, that doesn't feel good for me. That's not serving my purpose, and that's not serving how much I love myself. And I can have compassion and love you from a distance, but I don't have to be engaged with you.
Uh-huh.
And you talk about, when bringing the baggage forward from past relationships. Think about all the dogs who are in the fosters, or not the fosters, but in the shelters,
Mm-hmm.
and in these, in the pound. They were with families, and the family moved away, and they gave them back up, and someone comes and adopts them again. That dog's not holding you accountable for the family who dropped him off. That
Yeah.
dog is like, yay, you're here and you're going to love me. I'm ready. So you see how the dogs don't
Uh-huh.
carry forth that stuff from the past. They're like, I accept you in this moment, and I'm excited. If you're going to love me, I'm going to love you. And I think we should definitely use that when we go out dating, right?
Yes, yes. I think, I mean, I have to say that, where I live, there are a few stray dogs, and the people over here, they just love the dogs, and they used to feed the dogs, and they really, really love the dogs. And we all, I mean, even I love the dogs, and I used to, like, look out for the dogs. Every time I, go out and come back, and the dogs will be there at the guard house, just accompanying the guards, and they're just very lovely. And we show love to dogs, and the dogs just, be so nice to us as well. And there was just one day, this whole pack of dogs, they decided to just move or shift to some other place just nearby where we live. And they did not come back, but they just go and find new place and just live happily with the other dogs that they find. And I was like, oh my god, you moved on so fast. Happily.
And together, isn't
Yeah.
it great? They are in packs, and really, as humans, we are in packs too. But we need to find our pack, and it needs to be the people that are going to move on with us, right?
Yes, yes. I think it definitely makes sense. Like, as when you make comparison with dogs and just how enlightened they are. And so, Maureen, I mean, coming to this, I mean, post-pandemic world, and I know that dating is it has made dating really hard right now, and things are really, I mean, a lot of things are actually happening online, and now I'm actually talking to you online. Everything is just online. So if you were to look at 2019, right, I know life before COVID, I think we emphasized a lot on face-to-face interaction. We emphasized a lot on being in the presence of someone else to judge them, to be able to see how they speak, and to be able to judge somebody. But now I think even a lot of workplaces are forced to look at things from a different dimension perspective, working from home. And a lot of companies have actually proven that it is possible to work even without seeing one another on a daily basis. And how does this impact dating and relationship? Because we know that a lot, I mean, if you were to see that the statistics released by the dating apps post pandemic, I think the usage has actually gone really, really high, post pandemic. And most of them are, I think Don is here, most of them are actually there to kill time, or some of them are there genuinely trying to look for connection. So it has made things difficult, more difficult than ever. But what do you have to say about energy? And even if it is, even if it is online or offline, what do you have to say about energy? And people are still thinking that they have to have this face-to-face meeting, which I think is really important. But in terms of filtering people before we even meet them, I do think that uh, even if it is online, it is possible. But what are the pros and cons? What do you think about that?
What a great question. I love it. You are so amazing. Um, that's great. That's a great topic. It's funny. It's funny because that now we're judging everything pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. It's
Yeah.
just like this cutoff, moment. And I'm going to say this. I think people dating today are so lucky to be able to do the video. So when I was dating, we didn't have video. We didn't have, everything was online. My husband and I didn't even hear his voice. We were emailing for like 2 months. So I didn't even hear his voice, yet we were able to make a connection. Now, and pre-pandemic, I was not as embracing of technology as I am today. I used to have that same mentality about my clients in life coaching. And I'd say, well, I really like it when you're face to face and I have a home office and I need to feel your energy. Now I do everything via video. I can tell you this. I feel your energy right now. You feel my energy. So
Uh-huh.
I think if you want it, if you really want it, it's just like I feel like I'm sitting in a room with you right now. I just can't hug you. So you can really get to know someone, I believe, virtually like this. And you guys have the advantage, you guys, those who are dating today in the dating world, I think have the advantage of getting to see how someone speaks, hearing their mannerisms, and getting to have really the feel for who that person is. I don't think pre-pandemic we really had that opportunity. Now, the pro, of course, of being in person is physical touch,
Mm-hmm.
and being in the presence of each other that's never going to be replaced. We don't want it to be replaced. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
being human. But
Yeah.
I think you have a really, I'm going to say this, you don't have to waste your makeup when you go out now on dates. I always say, girl, don't waste your makeup. So you don't have to get the whole ritual of getting dressed up and getting fixed up and
Yeah.
driving to a restaurant and sitting there. Many a time I sat there with someone and knew within the first 10 minutes, I just did not vibe with them. I did not want to ever see them again. And I had to sit there for an hour and a half until dinner was done. Now, you're like, oh, sorry, someone's calling me, gotta go. So you have an advantage today, I think, via virtual and technology. You can see a person's home, how they live. You can see how they interact with others in their house. You can see if they're nice to their dogs, which would be, top of my criteria. And you can see how do they keep their appearances,
Uh-huh.
not just getting decked out to go out on a date, but you can see them in their environment, in their natural
Uh-huh.
authentic environment. being their authentic selves. So I think today, post pandemic, it's fabulous. I think dating would be so much easier. And I'm going to say this, you got to kiss a lot of frogs. So your opportunity to meet more people virtually is so much easier than going out on a date with 100 people and wasting makeup, you know? So I love it. And I tell everyone, get out there and date, get out there and do the virtual. My husband and I met online without even video or anything, and he lived in a different state. So it's more than possible now, even than when it was when I did it. So yeah, very, very exciting and hopeful for that.
Awesome. I mean, like, I have to add, to what you said earlier, if you, I think, like, even companies who are operating, majority of the workers are now working from home. I think they have learned that, um, if you want to make things work, you can make things work from any corner of the world. I mean, like, it's not necessarily that you have to have the face-to-face interaction. And I think a lot of us post-pandemic learned that, for you to trust somebody else, for a team to work together, it's not just about having them together at one place and micromanaging things. In order to have that ability for the management to feel that they have control over, they have the control over the situation, versus now, I think they've learned that no matter where my staffs are, I can still have that, I can still make judgment on how they're working and their working style. And I think the same goes to, dating as well. And I think those who are not able to judge someone based on virtual communication will not be able to trust them even if it is face to face, because they are not making that, they do not have the ability to make that discernment, right? I mean, like, what makes you think that, if you do not feel good about someone virtually, and what makes you think that you would be able to judge them when you're able to meet them face to face, right?
That is exactly it. I mean, that's perfectly said. It's coming back to the employers. They now need to trust their employees more because they're not within their sight. And virtually, in person, over the phone, via pigeon carrier, a letter, it doesn't matter how much you or how much the person is trustworthy. It's how much do you trust your judgment. And when you're at that healed place and you know yourself well enough to say, I'm going to see the signs. I'll give you an example. When I was dating, after I'd done the healing, I finally started to go out and date again. And I went out on a date, and I wasted my makeup, but I went out on a date and I came home, and my best friend said, how was your date? And I was super excited. I was like, it was great. He was super narcissistic. He was a total jerk. That's what her face looked like. She went, what? And I said, I recognized it. For the first time, I recognized it on the first date. And I said, we are not a good fit. Have a nice life. So it's that trusting. When I finally realized I trusted my own judgment, it didn't matter who came across my path or how they came across my path, whether it was virtual or in person. And when you talk about how the businesses are not micromanaging and your employees are not within sight, so you have to trust your employees more, we can relate that to relationships. It's about that alone time. Let your person go take a trip by themselves. Let them go visit their friends. That's that control part of, I have enough trust. I don't have to control this person. And I had once heard someone say, Maureen, if your husband was in New York, would he love you as much as he would if he was in the same room? And I said, yeah. And they said, would you love him the same? And I said, yeah. So distance doesn't matter. Distance doesn't matter as long as you know you have that connection and that love. And in the dating arena, whether you're in person, you could miss signs. Whether you're over the phone, you can miss signs. Or whether you're virtual, you can miss signs. So it truly is up to you to do that inner work and say, I'm going to see the signs. I'm going to set my intentions and I'm going to see the signs. And just like me seeing that narcissistic, selfish, person on that first date, I was excited because finally I believed I would see the signs. And I did.
Exactly. I think it's more about trusting our gut feelings and just trusting what we see for the first time or the first few times, the patterns for the first few times, and telling ourselves that, enough is enough. And it's not going to, I mean, I love how you said that, doing things virtual actually saves a lot of time, versus meeting in person and trying to spend maybe half a day or full day with them and just say, oh, this is not gonna, or maybe like 1 year doing all this live-in relationship and all that stuff with all the, with all the red flags and missing all those red flags, and finally, coming to terms with the fact that, it's not going to work out, right? So I think this is also why a lot of people stay in relationships, because they feel that, they don't want to see the red flags. They
Yeah.
just
They
right.
do. They do. My daughter, my oldest daughter, Lacey, had a saying, and she said, "Mom, I used to put the red flags in my purse." And so, when she would meet someone or she came across someone, she knew that they had red flags, but she would just shove them away
Ah,
and hope they'd go away. And so we kind of joked about it when she started dating. And I'd say, you didn't put any red flags in your purse tonight, did you? So it is, you want it so bad. You want the relationship so bad, but you don't want to face the reality of what it is. And if you remove the desperation, and I'm not saying that everybody's desperate, but we're all hoping and wanting a relationship so
longing. Yeah.
bad that sometimes that overpowers the reality of who's in front of us and what's in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And the virtual is now video is you have a window literally into someone's world where you don't have that when you go out on a date with them. You see them
Mm-hmm.
on their best behavior
Mm-hmm.
at the restaurant table, and they could carry that on for 4 or 5 dates.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're doing it virtually, things happen in your home and
Yeah.
you're not always all fancy. So
Yeah.
if you look, and here's the thing, you're going to find what you're looking for. If you're only looking for a person's flaws, you're going to find them. But if
Yeah.
you're intent on making sure that this person is compatible with me, then you're going to see those things that are compatible with you. But you also set your intentions to say, I need to make sure that our values are aligned. I need to make sure our hopes and our dreams and our futures are aligned. And that part of it is you being able to be vulnerable and ask the right questions. And I
Mm-hmm.
used to go out on dates with the idea in my head, I don't owe anybody anything. And I think a lot of people go out on a date the first time and then it's that awkward moment. Are we going to see each other again? And
Yeah.
I feel like we owe someone something. We don't.
Yeah.
And it really helped me to have my eyes more open when I went out and when I was dating, to say to myself, you don't owe anybody anything. So just see it for what it is. If it works, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. Then that's
Mm-hmm.
one step closer to the person you're looking for. And if you look at it that way, you don't feel so much pressure to make this one fit, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and you can easily say without hurting someone's feelings, I just don't think we're a good fit. And there's nothing anybody can say about that. You're not hurting their feelings. You're not insulting them. You're just saying, I'm looking for a perfect fit for me, and I just don't think we're a good fit, but I wish you the best. So no one's
Mm-hmm.
feelings gets hurt, and it's a very compassionate and kind way of saying, I'm looking for the most healthiest, compatible, connected, soul connected, loving relationship I can have. And there's just things with you that I just don't see. So it's okay for me to keep looking.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think a lot of times is, um, when there are more red flags, right? I mean, it's just right in front of our face. we would, it would be easier to let things go. But when it is a little bit of a mix of here and there, like you found some things that you are looking for, and the chemistry is there and all that is actually there, but something else is missing. It's a miss, like maybe the readiness, or maybe the ability to commit, and then things like that. And that's when I think we feel that, hey, we bumped and we had a good time, we chat, but it's not moving forward. Why is it not moving forward? And I think that's where we get trapped, like, trying to make that work, because we
Yeah.
felt that, it's already there. Why can't I just make things a little bit more, to see if it's working? I think that's where we get trapped. But I think it's also okay. I mean, we learn along the way, and when we finally see that being vulnerable, I mean, when you spoke about being vulnerable and asking the right questions, I think that's when a lot of people, you will see that a lot of people stumble. It's like, it's just
Oh,
I'm asking you something that is, you cannot avoid, like you have to answer me, like I'm asking you something that's really personal to you, like and you have to answer me that question, like you cannot avoid. And that's when you will be able to see if this person is able to open up to you or not, or they are like, oh,
right.
what do you think about marriage, or what do you think about, when do you think you want to settle down? And well,
Yes.
I'm not sure. I have to see where it goes. I think I've not given it a thought. All those things. I'm like, really? And you
Yeah.
are.
You're absolutely right. And that's the thing. That's called settling. When someone has some of it,
Mm,
but not quite the important thing. So when I create this avatar with my dating clients, we
uh-huh,
create an avatar and there's non-negotiables and there's negotiables. And
uh-huh,
if someone is not meeting those non-negotiables, they're not for you. And those non-negotiables, I wish I had my copy of my avatar. Those non-negotiables are, you must be emotionally available. You must be financially stable. You must love to be around family. You must like
mm-hmm,
to be romantic. I mean, everybody has different negotiables
mm-hmm,
or non-negotiables. But I always say to my friends and to my clients, you want them to check all the boxes. And
mm-hmm,
someone should not check some and not all, because you got to understand, when you accept it at the beginning, you're accepting that 5 years down the road. You're accepting
mm-hmm,
10 years down the road.
mm-hmm,
And the settling part is when we make excuses for why they don't meet those non negotiables.
mm-hmm,
That's when
mm-hmm,
we settle. We're like, well, he doesn't really like kids, but,
mm-hmm,
he's got a stable job. But
mm-hmm.
you, on your non-negotiables, you want someone who wants children. So why are you going to
Yes,
sacrifice who you are and what you deserve and what you want just
exactly.
because you want to be temporarily in a relationship with someone who 5,
Yeah.
10 years down the road, when you want children, it's going to be a big, big deciding factor and
Mm-hmm,
probably end the relationship because we are not at that compatibility part.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I love that you said that. So you need to really make sure they mark all the boxes. You need to make sure, and there's nothing wrong with that. I used to think, and my father used to say this to me. He'd say, "You're looking for the perfect man, and you're never going to find it." And he'd say, "Your expectations are too high." And I would say, Dad, I'm looking for perfect for me. That is not the
Yeah,
perfect for somebody else.
yeah.
And my expectations are my desires.
Mm-hmm,
And if somebody thinks that's too much, I don't care, because that's what's going to work for me. And I think we hear that a lot in dating. Well, you need to lower your bar a little bit. You need to lower your expectation. Oh, this is my favorite that everybody says. Well, nobody's perfect. Ugh. We're not saying we need perfection in a person. There is no such thing as a perfect person. But we're saying I need someone that meets all of those non-negotiables. Those things that are perfectly compatible and perfectly aligned with the same ideas that I have with my life, and the values, and the all of those things that will make us go through life a lot easier,
mm-hmm,
rather than opposing each other. And we're going to be in this constant tug of war. Like you said, do they want to
mm-hmm,
commit? Do they not? If you're interested in marriage and you meet someone who's like, I haven't really thought about it, right there, you might want to say, if it's something that's really high on my list that I desire, I kind of want someone who's thought about it as well on a very good
Mm-hmm.
level. So that's where we tend to compromise. We tend to
Mm-hmm.
say, well, he's a guy. Let's make an excuse. Guys don't really think about that stuff. Only women do. No,
Mm-hmm.
it's not true. And if you believe there is a person out there who has the same ideas and values and goals as you do, then believe it and keep searching till you find it. And I don't care if it's 100 toads, you're going to find your prince. You just don't settle until you find that prince. And you believe every day that he's getting better, he's going to find you, you're getting better, and you're going to find him. And it's going
Mm-hmm.
to, when the when the universe and source and God just decide it's time. And that's when we're at our best place, where we're supposed to meet.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, I love how you say that, it's all about the divine timing, and it's all about trusting, believing that, where you are right now is serving the purpose for your entire path, and you are just building yourself up as a person, and as we all journey through life, we will get what we're supposed to get at the right time. And I think in the meantime, doing the right thing or believing in what we want very strongly is what we're supposed to do, and not get confused, with things, and not um, choosing some of the paths or something that we are not really into, and just because we want to look for options, we want to look for a change. We tend to do that a lot, I think. But coming to this reality or this realization would help people to understand themselves better, and move forward and make decisions that are better for their higher self, right? I think, yeah.
Absolutely. My favorite thing that I tell everyone and that I tell myself is nothing that is meant for you will ever miss you.
It's you.
So
Yeah.
if it's meant for you, it'll find you. You cannot outrun what is meant for you and what is planned for you. So what are you planning for? What are you drawing into you? So
Mhm.
if you believe, then it will come and nothing will miss you. And the perfect person, your twin flame connection, your soulmate will find you. And your job is to be at your highest level to meet them.
Uh-huh. Absolutely, absolutely, Maureen. I think those who are watching this right now or later on would definitely benefit from this, and especially even those who are married will be able to see how um, having an identity is really important in even in a relationship, and trying to find yourself is really important. So I hope that it will benefit the audience. So with that, we've come to an end of the show. I think we've covered a lot of things, and I'm so excited to shred this long interview into a series of shorter videos, and I'll be putting up the snippets, and also on Instagram and YouTube. So as soon as we end the broadcast on Facebook, it's going to be available for replay on Facebook immediately, almost immediately. And I'll be sending you the links to the video on Instagram, also on YouTube, and I'll be repurposing the whole video for the others to enjoy in the days to come. Thank you so much, Maureen, for joining me today. And I have to thank Dawn. I know you're there. Thank you so much, Dawn, for watching. This is really amazing. Thank you for connecting me with a lot of wonderful authors out there, just like yourself, Dawn. And I'll see you again, Maureen. This is my first show ever talking about relationship, in particular about having the right mindset. So in that aspect, and also with a relationship coach. So I think the audience will be able to get a lot more insights from this interview. So thank you so much for joining us today, Maureen. Thank you, and I hope that I will be able to meet you in the upcoming interviews one day. So thank you so much, and have a fantastic week ahead, Maureen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You are a light in this world, and it was such a pleasure meeting you. And Dawn is just this beautiful conduit who just keeps bringing this love and light. And I love you, Dawn. I appreciate you, and this was such a fun conversation, and your questions are so amazing and in depth. And who doesn't want to talk about relationships? So anytime you ever want to talk about relationships and dogs and life, I'm here anytime.
Awesome.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining. And I'm sure we'll meet again in the future shows. And thank you so much, Maureen. Do keep in touch and I'll see you again. Thank you so much. Bye
Bye bye.
bye.